Today I am making a slab with the slab roller. I usually use the rolling pin method, which I showed last time with the wave tray, but this piece is actually 28 inches long, which is hard to get that length with the rolling pin. So I'm showing you here how I do this long tray. And so basically you start out with the clay thick and you want to slowly thin it out by running it back and forth through the slab roller. This is a really nice slab roller. It's a North Star, and it has a roller on the top and a roller on the bottom, and that helps to prevent warpage. So what I'm doing there is I'm cranking down these where the roller is and slowly thinning out the clay a little bit at a time, probably 1/8 of an inch each time I go through there. So I'm going to do this several times before I get down to 3/8 of an inch. So I'm sure you don't want to watch me keep going back and forth, but it's basically a repeat. After rolling the clay back and forth probably like 20 times, I'm starting to measure what the length of my clay and how it's going to fit with that long tray. And so I need to go a little further than what I already have. And so here I am cranking it down a little further and running it back through the rollers. And once in a while, the clay kind of gets stuck to the fabric, so every once in a while I lift up the fabric and release the clay from the fabric and start rolling again. Here is an example of when the clay starts sticking to the fabric, and see that lump there in the clay? That's from the clay sticking to the fabric and it having a hard time getting through the roller. So I just pick up the clay off the fabric, reposition it, and start going again. And since I'm not that far into thinning it out, I still can roll through that and get rid of that. Now that I have the slab all rolled out where it is long enough for me to put this long tray in, I am going to flip it over really quick. Oops, 1 second. I forgot to put the WD-40 on the tray. It's always interesting in the studio. I have 2 studio dogs with me each day, and so that was me taking a break and letting Cookie back in from the backyard. But here I am. I'm putting the WD-40 all over the tray, especially when I use the slab roller. I have to make sure that I get WD-40 on the tray, or sometimes the clay sticks to the tray and then it'll crack because it has no other option when it's drying. So there it is, flipping it over. And that wasn't exactly easy. My son's actually watching, and so we're having a good time watching me do this. But I'm having to shift it a little bit because the flipping didn't go as well as I'd hoped. It really is a big slab. So I decided to go ahead and take the fabric off since it is actually being more of a hindrance than helping with moving the clay. So off comes the fabric. And now I think I still had a little bit of shifting to do to get it just right on my tray. So I'm gonna just get it to slump in there a little bit and make sure it's all good and dropping in to the tray. So when I smooth it out, it turns out just right. And I think we're pretty much there. So the next step is to take the needle tool and slowly cut around your tray to get the edges just where they need to be. And that's a long tray, so round and round I go. And that is looking pretty good. Time to give some final smoothing with a sponge and just get everything just so where it's perfectly slumped in the tray. And I'll clean up the edges with the sponge, and that's pretty much it. So my son is going to make an entrance here. We were debating on how long this tray actually was. I think I said, I don't know, like 18, and I think he said 22, and then it ended up being 26. But that's kind of how it goes in the studio. It's really fun to have him in. So I've made a bunch of trays, and I basically do the handles the same on every one. So I'm just going to show you how I do handles on this particular long tray. that I did recently. So we need some slip. All right, so I have my slip here, and I actually added water in it the last time. It's a little lumpy because it's getting too thick. So a little bit of slip, and these are already scored because I always, well, not always, but I try to score them when I slump the tray, and so that way when I come back to doing handles, they're ready to go. All right, so the other thing I do is I have a die for my extruder that is a standard one that I use for most things. And so I cut all these ribbons out here, and I like 6 inches. And so I'll show you close up from behind. I like to roll the edges under like this. And this is the fun part. I go like this, and my staff is always like, what did you do? So I get this kind of shape like that. So let me do it again. Grab another one here. And so usually what I do is I count how many handles I need, and I make all the handles, and then I put slip on all the pots, and then I put the handles on all the pots. Okay, so here we go. There we go. And that gives me this gentle curve that I like. Okay, so let's put the handle on. And I'm gonna move this down a little bit. There you go. And I've got my little curve here, and I've already scored, and I have a nice amount of slip on it. So I usually put my hand against here, because if I just press down, the clay is gonna wanna split like this on the rim. So I'm countering the pressure. So I'm pushing this way with this hand and down with this hand. Push and push. And then I lay down the handle. So your handle on a piece is usually going to be your weakest spot. And so I don't like handles just like sticking way up away from the pot. I like them to follow the curve and to be nested in nicely, because, you know, I want it to not only be pretty, I want it to be durable. All right, so I flatten those out a little bit, and then I check, are they about the same size? And they look the same size, and they're following this curve right here. So there is the platter. And I think it turned out quite lovely. And I think we said it was 25 inches. So that's a pretty long, beautiful platter. So there it is. And I will go put handles on the rest of these. And I think that pretty much calls it a day for slumping. So we will catch you next time. Bye.